What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be reviewing episode 1 of Netflix's Skull Island. Episode 1 titled Maritime Pilot. Oh, what can I say, friends? I love being proven wrong. I really enjoyed this episode. So what I'm going to plan on doing here, because there's 8 episodes, I think, they're about 20 to 30 minutes each. My plan is to review every single episode one by one. We all know that I do really bad with this. So I'm going to really try. YouTube allows 3 notifications a day, so I can post 3 times a day with you getting notified. So I'm going to try to upload 3 times a day until I review the whole show. That's going to be my goal. And I hope I don't fall off like I did with Singular Point, or especially that Pacific Rim anime. I'll still review Singular Point, by the way. I'm definitely, I have those reviews. They were all recorded. They've all been recorded, so I'll still do that at some point. Anyways, I'm gonna try and keep this as brief as possible. I'm gonna just kind of run through some notes I took. I watched the episode twice, once just so I could watch it, and then once I took notes on it. So I'll go through my notes here, but I'm not gonna give a beat by beat. I will give a spoiler warning. I will be doing spoilers for the episode. I don't know how much footage I'm gonna use in these, just because again, I want to keep them a little snappier and a little faster so that I can get them out for you guys. Not as structured as my Singular Point reviews were. If I do use footage, my bad. It looks ugly. It's because it's really hard to get Netflix footage in high quality to use to edit with, so it doesn't look the best, but I'll do the best I can. But overall, I just want to say I'm really happy to be proven wrong. This episode did everything right, in my opinion. It, first of all, blew me away by going slow. It was slow paced. We took the whole first episode to even wind up on Skull Island. I really thought we were going to get to Skull Island within the first 7 minutes of the show. I thought it'd be a rapid fire through basically what happened in this first episode to get us to Skull Island as quick as possible. They didn't do that. They actually showed a lot of restraint in this episode, and the writing, I thought, was really good. I was really impressed with it. I thought that this was a very well written show. To run through some of my notes here, and they're kind of all over the place, so just bear with them. I thought this episode had a fantastic hook with Annie's escape. I thought the animation was great, although I didn't really buy her pulling all that off with the handcuffs on, but whatever. She's an Iwi. I'll give her an advantage. I think she's an Iwi anyways. She's definitely from Skull Island, so she's got some skills. Again, as I said in my trailer reviews and breakdowns, the settings and the environments are really where this show shines. They are fantastic. The ship looks great. Both ships we see in this episode look great. The interior sets look great. The fire on the boat looked really good. I loved when it set things on fire. I also love how they have some setup for things that are going to come later in the show. Like we see the helicopter here, and now it won't feel out of place when it shows up a few episodes later. Small details, these are kind of all over the place, that I really loved in this show are things like how the belt ripped when she was doing her little zip line, which is a little unrealistic for the MonsterVerse, but I liked that the belt ripped, which added back in that layer of realism that made me feel like this can fit with the MonsterVerse. And of course, that is kind of my metric for this show, is does this feel like something that can fit within the MonsterVerse? And they do a lot of zigging and zagging in this first episode, and I would say overall they balance it really well. How do you tell an animated story in a live action universe? Well, I thought they did a really good job balancing those elements in this episode. Later on, we see a guy get smacked up against some glass, and when he does, he breathes and some fog gets on the glass, and I thought that's a great touch. Really good to show the moisture hitting the glass. I also loved the scary face in the clouds at the start of this episode with the lightning going on. It was very King Kong 2005, and then later on, Charlie's rolling around the room while having a conversation in his chair, and I thought it was a really relatable human moment that they added. I also noticed that they might have something that vaguely resembles the Kong Skull Island poster in the Once Upon a Maritime ship, which I thought was another really cool little Easter egg, if that is what that was supposed to be. Charlie has that little line about going skydiving, and so I think at some point in the show he's gonna have to do a big skydive, because that just felt like setup in my opinion, which it would be fun if it does happen where he has to do a big jump. That'd be a lot of fun. I love the small personal conflict between the characters here. It is something that I think is very important in monster movies, and really just in any movie. It's something I think is lacking in most kaiju movies, which is where I feel there's a disconnect for audiences, where the characters don't have something small, relatable, and personal to deal with. And I like that here. I loved the college conflict. I thought it really set the characters up well, and I loved the way that they're kind of like this low budget version of Monarch looking for monsters. I thought that was a lot of fun. I also really liked Hiro and Mike. I thought they had a great dynamic, and I'm really sad about what happens later in the episode, but I'll talk about that in a second. I thought the dialogue in this episode was super witty and engaging. I actually really liked it. I'm sure the humor is going to turn a lot of people off, especially people going into this show looking for something to hate. I think they are going to really really dislike the humor in this show, but I personally found the dialogue to be very witty and engaging and well written. I also like how fun and silly this show is without compromising the tone of the MonsterVerse. It never felt more absurd than Kong Skull Island to me, which is the metric for a King Kong sequel. Some of the jokes in here really landed for me as well. Like, some of them I thought were really funny, such as the way that Mike translates Hero, even though Hero spoke English. I thought that was a great joke. And I thought Boomer was a really great side character, even though he had very little screen time and probably died in this episode. There were some good King Kong-esque moments in here too, like finding Annie overboard, much like how they find Dwan in the 1976 movie. I also liked the dog setup. Had we not known what dog was, had we not seen him in the trailers, I think the mystery would have been built really well here. One thing I don't hope we do is I don't hope we see a love triangle between Annie, Charlie, and Mike. I think that's going to be a little cringe, and I think it's a little too predictable. I hope they don't go that direction with it, but I have a feeling they're going to. I really liked the coffee joke early in the episode. It made Hero an instantly likable character and made what happened to him all the more tragic. One thing I noticed was that Annie speaks English really well for someone who is probably an Iwi. I have a feeling that she might have been somewhat stranded on Skull Island for a long time, and so she's just kind of adapted to the island, but if she is an Iwi, she speaks English really well. But I do like that she said the sky was on fire when she saw the flare, because of course the Iwi wouldn't know what flares are, and it also reminded me of the way that they talked about people from Skull Island, The Birth of Kong. Remember when they kept calling them the people who fell from the sky? I thought that kind of tied things together in a way that supported continuity rather than going against it. Now, this is going to sound like an insult, but I really don't mean it to be. I just noticed it. It's just something I noticed. I don't mean it to be rude. The music and voice cast in this episode, I thought all of it was good. I actually really liked the soundtrack. Sometimes I didn't love it, but sometimes I really loved it. And I thought the voice cast was all very good. I really liked the voice cast. However, they all feel like they're part of an animated project. The voice cast feels like an animated voice cast, and the soundtrack feels like a soundtrack for an animated project rather than a movie. I don't mean that in a rude way. It just stuck out to me as being a stylistic thing where it didn't feel like they were going for consistency with a live action project. Felt more like they're going, okay, let's play full into that this is an animated project. I don't know. Good Kong inversion here with the bad guys coming onto the ship to take away the native girl. That's a good twist on the way that the natives usually come to steal the normal girl. I also like that she freaks out when she finds out they're bombing the ocean to wake up monsters. I'm sure all of the Iwi on Skull Island don't appreciate blowing things up to wake up monsters, not after 1973. I also like the line where he goes, well, it sounds dumb when you say it like that, because that line was very Kong Skull Island, reminded me of the whole skull crawler reveal. I liked it a lot. Again, for me, the humor's really working in this show. It worked for me in the trailer. It's working for me here. I'm sure that's going to not be a popular opinion. I'm having fun with it. This episode builds tension really well. I thought it had a great escalation with the human threat leading into the kaiju threat. I also loved the way that the other ship goes missing, creating this great mystery. Good Clifford reference that made me laugh a lot. I thought that was a lot of fun, and it confirms that Clifford is a kaiju. It's definitive now. It's interesting how Cap says he got close to discovering a monster decades ago. I'm curious to know if that's going to be a Godzilla cameo if we do a flashback or something, or if it'll maybe be flashing back to Bill Randa and that incident that set Bill Randa on the path he went on, kind of leading them both to Skull Island. I don't know how old Cap is supposed to be. He seems a little too young for that to be the case, but it could be interesting. I also wonder if it'll somehow, some way tie into the Monarch television show that will be coming out soon, which will deal with all sorts of monster encounters in the past. Mike's freak out when he finds out that the guy has a knife is great. It is very in line with what we see from him in the trailers, so I like that it seems he has a very consistent character. I also like that Boomer, the deaf guy, can't feel vibrations. I know that's a weird thing to like, but it is something that has stuck out to me for a long time, that deaf characters are always given kind of a superpower rather than just being treated like people. And it was something that was really prominent in film school where nobody knew how to write deaf people. Sometimes they wanted to, and every time somebody tried to write a deaf person in film school, they gave them basically superhuman abilities to sense vibrations, and I always felt that's kind of an unrealistic and unfair depiction of deaf culture. And so I liked in this show that they didn't really do that. I mean, Gia in Godzilla vs. Kong has done pretty well, but even there, she kind of occasionally will be able to sense something that maybe she shouldn't have. The heartbeat was great, but Godzilla was a little like, what? Anyways, I really loved the War of the Gargantuas-esque reveal of the big squid. I liked the way it grabbed that guy and pulled him out of the cabin. That was a good touch. And I do think that these might have been intentional War of the Gargantuas references. I also was right in my trailer breakdowns that red squid is also the blue squid, so that's cool to know. The cinematography in this episode was great. I really liked it. I liked the top-down shot a lot. I really liked that top-down chase. And I also, this is another touch that I really appreciate, is how they place things in the foreground. I feel like one of the biggest things scenes that is a big tell for me when they're in the volume in live action movies or on green screens or in animated projects. It's a big thing where it's like, okay, this is an animated project. They don't place things in the foreground often. They mostly don't. And I really like it when things go out of their way to create interesting shot compositions even when they don't have to. And this is a case where they created interesting shot compositions when it would be harder for them to do so than to just have people standing in front of backgrounds. So I like that they did that a lot. I hope we learn what they were actually chasing, because they said they're not chasing the Squid Titan, so I hope we learn what they were actually chasing. I'm sure we will. And I cannot believe Hero got squashed. That was really sad, but it was a good sacrifice moment. I like the way he pushes his son out of the way, saves his life, and they gave that moment a lot of time to breathe. They actually gave it time to breathe and had an emotional payoff with it at the end of the episode. It didn't just happen and move on with no consequences. You felt the weight of that death. It also established this as being more than just a kids show, a show that will deal with bigger themes. I really liked it. I'm shocked he's dead, given the fact that in the trailer we hear a voice that sounds suspiciously like him say, "Have you seen my son?" So I'm thinking maybe he won't be dead, but there was a lot of blood and he got really smushed, so I don't know. Seems like he's dead. The Squid Titan is crazy with its reflexes, the way it catches that spear, but not as crazy as how sharp that spear must be to cut through handcuffs. I really like that the squid could harness electricity too. That's something that definitely King Kong should learn how to do in the MonsterVerse, because come on, I'm never going to give up on it. Lightning hands are awesome. And the Lovecraftian squid reveal was fantastic, but damn, Cap can hold his breath for a really long time. Annie's rescue was also really well done. The way she rescued Cap was really well done and actually reminded me of The Little Mermaid. It was cool. It was great. It's a miracle that they all wound up on Skull Island. I don't know how they didn't drown. I don't know how they didn't get lost at sea, but that's where I will put my suspension of disbelief that they all wound up on that island somehow. And then I really like the final reveal here where they're in the footprint. It's a very Godzilla 98-esque reveal, and it's also a fantastic setup for the future episodes. And overall, I really enjoyed this show. I thought it was a really well done episode. I was very impressed with it. I'm very happy to be wrong about my feelings about it, and I'm super excited to see what comes next. I think next episode is going to be a lot of running around, and I think it's going to be where we see the big crocodile chase. So that should be a lot of fun. It'll probably end, if I had to guess, with that big reveal where Kong shows up and eats the crocodile. That's just a guess. He might do that like mid-episode, but I don't know. That'll do it for this one, guys. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can using the link in the description below. It really does mean a lot to me, and it goes a long way towards making sure I can keep making videos like this for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.